Today on SPG1 Tactical, we compare the Trijicon SRO and the Holosun 507 Comp. So while I have no affiliation with either company, I'm a pretty big Trijicon fan. I have multiple RMRs, MROs, VCOG, and this SRO. But I also have multiple Holosuns, though mostly 507Ks for my SIG P365s. Recently, I've been getting back into Glock-esque shooting with the Zev OZ9X and the Icarus Precision OZ9X grip module. And this is where I ran into some problems with the SRO. It just wouldn't fit into my Safariland ALS holster because the SRO sits cantilevered in front of the optic cut, and this doesn't allow the ALS locking system to index on the ejection port. Now, I could just take my redneck gunsmith tool, aka the Dremel, and cut out some of the ALS lock, but there are videos on YouTube of how to do this, but there was something about cutting into my $240 holster that just didn't sit right with me. Now, I know that it doesn't affect the functionality of the holster in theory, but it was just something I'd rather not do. And on another note, I also intend to change this slide, and I like my Glock slides to have the rear iron sights in front of the optic, so the SRO really wouldn't work there either, hence additional justification for changing the optic. So I decided to grab a 507 Comp to replace the SRO on this particular gun. Either way, this gives me the opportunity to put the SRO and the 507 Comp side by side and really do an in-depth comparison to answer any questions that you might have. Now, there are 7 areas that I think should be compared, and those are size, reticle options, brightness settings, battery, durability, sighting, and price. So let's jump into them and then I'll give a final opinion at the end. So the biggest physical difference out of the gate is the size. Now they both have comparably large windows, but the SRO is longer at 2.15 inches, whereas the 507 Comp is only the length of the RMR footprint at 1.78 inches. As far as height, they are very similar with only a 0.1 inch difference, with the SRO being taller due to the round window. As far as weight with batteries installed, the SRO comes in at 1.6 ounces and the Holosun comes in at 1.8 ounces. So a 0.2 ounce difference between the two optics, but strangely enough, the larger optic being the lighter one. This is probably due to the housing material. The SRO is rounded and the 507 Comp is more rectangular with a curve at the top. Reticle options are another diverging point between the Trijicon and the Holosun. The SRO is available in 3 separate reticle models at MOA sizes of 1, 2.5, and 5. So there are only dot options and each size is a different model. The 507 Comp comes with a changeable reticle from a 2 MOA dot through versions of circles and circle dots up to 32 MOA. The Trijicon only comes available in red, and the 507 Comp is available in either red or green variants. Both the SRO and the 507 Comp have marketed 8 total brightness settings. Both claim to have 6 daylight settings and 2 night vision settings. Now I found that with the SRO, I could actually only see 6 settings in my kitchen and inside of a dark closet without night vision. The 507 Comp, I could see 8 different brightness settings in my kitchen and 9 in a dark closet. So that's 1 more than is marketed, and I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But both were plenty daylight bright on a sunny day. When I broke out the night vision, I was actually a little surprised. But at least with my testing, the Holosun actually appears to be a bit more clear. I tried to make testing accurate and put them side by side at the same time with the same PVS-14, and this was in a closet with the door closed, so very little light was coming through the cracks and no illuminators were used. I focused the PVS-14 until the dots were as small as possible. Setting 1, the Holosun seems to be more clear. Setting 2, the SRO seems to take edge. And then setting 3, the first marketed daylight setting, seems to be more clear again on the Holosun. Now, I don't expect most people to be using these optics for night vision purposes, but then again, there is a subset of competitions that have night vision components, so you never know. Another important difference to note between the two optics is that the Holosun is fixed settings, meaning that whichever setting you place it on is where it stays. The SRO has the option of auto brightness that can be manually overridden with the brightness controls. Now, I've never really run into any major issues with auto brightness on my RMRs, but there have been a few times where I've picked up the SRO and had to hunt for the dot for a second until it kind of caught up to the light. So there are pluses and minuses to auto brightness. In certain contexts, I think it could be beneficial, but again, you can turn it off if you want consistent settings. And obviously, the brightness settings will affect our next category, the battery. The SRO uses a 2032 coin battery, whereas the Holosun uses a 1632 battery. While these are both 3-volt batteries, the 2032 is physically larger and does have larger capacity, so in theory, could last longer. The SRO has a marketed claim of up to 3-year battery life, which equates to 26,280 hours on setting 4. The Holosun is marketed up to 50,000 hours or 5.7 years on setting 6. Now, taking a quick break from just stating features. If these numbers are accurate and true, I'm guessing that Trijicon is being conservative as well as it stays on all the time, and Holosun is making assumptions on using only the 2 MOA dot and utilizing the shake awake feature, which means they're estimating a certain amount of time that the pistol will be at rest. But either way, you're looking at a minimum of a year or two for each of these optics, and it's a good idea to change your batteries annually anyways. The Trijicon battery is top-loaded, which is a nice departure from their former RMR offerings, and is accessible with a large cap that can use multiple tools, as the profile is both Phillips and flathead. The Holosun sticks with their standard side compartment loading tray, utilizing a small flathead screw to release the tray and access the battery. Aaron Cowan already did a durability test on the SRO, and he's done some durability tests on various Holosuns as well. I don't have that Sage Dynamic money to be stress testing my optics unless it's on accident or during competitions. I will say that in this case, based on Aaron's testing and stories from acquaintances, the Holosun is likely to last longer from impacts due to the body and glass shape. But also keep in mind that the SRO is specifically designed for competition and is not necessarily recommended for duty use. Now, I'm not suggesting that the 507 comp is, as it's also marketed for competition. I mean, hell, it's even in the name, but would be more likely to be able to fit that role. Now, I know some will argue for the SRO in this case, but based on research data and anecdotal stories from firsthand users, the durability of the SRO just doesn't seem to be as robust. The SRO doesn't have a specified IP rating, but lists it as being submersible up to 10 feet with no specified time limit. So something like IPX8 sounds appropriate. And I have personally submerged this optic in a bucket of water for about 5 minutes for a competition stage with no issues. The Holosun is rated at IP67, which is a minimum of submersible up to 1 meter or 3 feet 3 inches for 30 minutes. But unless you're planning on scuba diving with either of these, they're safe to use in the rain or at least in the shallow end of a swimming pool or as a shower gun. Both optics use a flathead profile to adjust their windage and elevation. though the Trijicon has a larger slit, meaning that you can arguably use more objects to turn the dial. Both also adjust the reticle 1 MOA per click. So if zeroing at 10 yards, you'll need to turn the dial 10 clicks to adjust 1 inch on the target. The SRO has a marketed total elevation and windage travel of 150 MOA. The 507 comp has a marketed value of only 60 MOA. This is a pretty big difference and would suggest that the SRO is more versatile for platforms besides pistol. To give an idea of what this difference means, again, if you're at 10 yards, the total range for the SRO would be 15 inches, where the Holosun would be 6 inches. Now, 6 inches is still a large spread at 10 yards, but it does show just how much more adjustment capabilities the SRO has. This could lend itself well to raised optic mounts on something like pistol caliber carbines or other rifle systems. Lastly, we come to price. And as of this video, the SRO can be found online for $550 to $600 new. The Holosun 507 comp can be found from around $370 to $400, depending on which color reticle you want, with green being the more expensive. So this is a price difference of around $180 to $200, which is nothing to balk at. And you can find links to both below in the description. But now that we've talked about our 7 areas of comparison, I'll close out with some personal thoughts. Again, to be clear, I have no affiliation with either of these companies. I still very much like and appreciate Trijicon and everything they've done for the military and optics in general. But in this case, I'm thinking that the Holosun is just offering so much more in a smaller overall package for a better price point. I'm not saying that the Holosun is perfect by any means, and I know some people will gladly pay the $200 difference to support Trijicon and an American company. But as a frugal consumer, it's hard to look away from the features that are provided by the Holosun. Multiple reticle choices in a single model, 2 color choices, smaller overall size, and more affordable. Now, if I was looking for a specifically duty-rated optic that I trust my life with, I'd be looking at an RMR. But that's not the point of this video. I wanted to offer a comparison of 2 large windowed red dots that are really marketed more for the competition world. I did run into an issue with one of my Holosun 507K battery trays during a competition that has made me a little paranoid about the Holosun side battery mounting. The tiny screw that holds the tray in apparently had worked its way loose, and partway through a stage, the battery, tray, and screw just yeeted right out. I was fortunately able to use my backup iron sights to finish the stage, but once we figured out what happened, I had to find all the pieces. Fortunately, I found the tray and battery, but that little screw is so small that it was gone just like a David Copperfield magic trick. Holosun customer service was really helpful, and they sent me out some new screws and trays free of charge, but the optic was still down until the new parts came in. So it's important to use something like blue Loctite on the Holosun screw, and maybe even a mark for where the screw is tightened to see if it's starting to loosen or back out. But that's only happened once, and it's now something that I keep an eye on. Other than that, the Holosuns that have been released are continuing to provide new features and innovations at a price-conscious value. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you Team Trijicon, Team Holosun, or Team something else? Or heck, Team whatever I can get my hands on to fill the job. If you found this video helpful or informative, please go ahead and use those trigger fingers to tap or click on those like and subscribe buttons, as that greatly helps the channel grow. To find S2S 5-in-1 Gun Lube, endorsed gear, book suggestions, SPG1 Tactical t-shirts, and a copy of the book that I helped to co-author, The 6 Bullets You Can't Leave Home Without, head over to SPG1Tactical.com. For outstanding training, head over to Intuitive Self-Protection at intuitivesp.com or the ISP Facebook page to find course schedules, videos, and student testimonials. And lastly, be sure to stay safe, stay smart, and stay tactical, my friends.